Hello and welcome. Imagine being told over and again that the end is nigh, unless you pay more, use less and trust the experts who got it wrong last time. Sound familiar? Today we're cutting through the noise on Australia's climate pledges, desalination white elephants, and what a rush to 2035 targets could really mean for your power bill, your job and the country's resilience. Today we're talking about a story Australians know only too well: dire predictions, panicked policy and billion-dollar projects that somehow never seem to deliver what was promised. You've heard the hysterical warnings. If we don't cut CO2 further and faster, life gets worse. Heat, droughts, disaster. We've heard versions of this for decades, often delivered with the volume turned all the way up. And yet, when you check back on the big calls, the facts and the panic-predicted outcomes never match the fear. Remember the last time we were told water scarcity would define Australia's future, that dams might never fill again, that our cities would be on the brink. On the back of those warnings, Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane rushed to build multi-billion-dollar desalination plants in a mad rush because, we were told, there was no time to waste. And what happened? Well, the rains returned, the dams filled, and those massive plants, designed for an emergency, spend long stretches idle, still burning cash through take-or-pay contracts. Melbourne's plant alone has been reported at a build cost in the billions and hundreds of billions every year just to keep the lights on, whether or not a single drop is ever produced. Over decades, taxpayers are locked into enormous payments, money that could have been used for hospitals, schools, or reliable baseload energy. It's not that desalination is inherently bad. It's that fear made us buy the most expensive insurance policy at the worst possible time and then keep paying for it forever. Fast forward to today, we're hearing calls for dramatic cuts by 2035, targets on the order of 65 to 75% below previous baselines. In theory, that sounds bold. In practice, it means a wholesale re-engineering of our energy system, our industry and transport on a timeline that simply doesn't care whether the technology, infrastructure or economics are ready. So let's game this out like adults. Power prices, a rapid build out of renewables, transmission lines, firming capacity and storage isn't free. Someone pays, and that someone is you, through higher bills, network charges and taxes. These costs don't disappear because they're spread out, they compound. Heavy industry, steel, aluminium smelting, energy-intensive sectors that create high-skilled jobs will face a simple decision: pay more here or move offshore to countries with cheaper energy and looser targets. We know how that story ends. Once these industries go, they rarely, if ever, come back. Transport. Pushing a rapid shift to EVs sounds clean on paper, but many homes can't host chargers. Grid upgrades lag, and the upfront costs are steep. Now extend that to freight, emergency services, and regional travel. You can't mandate physics or logistics into submission. If you hobble trucks, bushfire response, ambulances and rail without equivalent, affordable alternatives ready to go, you aren't decarbonising, you're immobilising. Aviation. Significant emission cuts in aviation by 2035 without affordable, scalable fuel alternatives means fewer flights, higher costs and isolated regional communities. This isn't a thought experiment, it's lived economy. Real jobs, real families, real consequences. There's also a strategic blind spot. The world's supply of solar panels, wind turbine components, and lithium-ion batteries is dominated by China. Australians can't ignore that concentration. If we rush headlong into a transition that relies overwhelmingly on components from a single supplier, we don't just become greener, we become perilously vulnerable. And here's a number often left out of glossy policy decks. Australia accounts for roughly about 1% of global emissions. If Australia were to go to absolute zero tomorrow, the effect will be absorbed by the growth in emissions from larger economies in about a year. That doesn't mean do nothing. It means do the right things in the right order at the right costs with our eyes wide open. Advocates will argue that costs are falling, technologies are improving, and that moral leadership matters. Well, fair points. But moral leadership without material realism is pantomime performance, not policy. The grid must be reliable in summer and winter. Industry needs predictable, affordable energy. Regional Australia needs transport that works in heat, dust and distance. If we sprint ahead of practicality, we don't save the planet. We just export jobs, import equipment, and hope that the lights stay on. So what's the alternative to panic policy? Prioritise reliability first. Any megawatt we add or retire must keep the system stable. Blackouts help no one and erode support for any transition. Go after low regret wins, efficiency upgrades, methane capture, industrial heat optimisation, smarter demand management. Boring, proven, bankable. Diversify firming. Don't rely solely on one technology. Instead, combine pumped hydro where it's feasible, pilot long duration storage, use gas firming as a transitional solution, and be open to evaluating nuclear energy based on its merits and costs rather than preconceived notions and emotive slogans. Build what we can make here, shorten supply chains. If we're going to buy turbines, panels and batteries, develop local manufacturing where it's competitive to protect jobs and sovereignty. Sensible timelines. Targets should follow engineering reality, not the other way around. Set milestones that industry can meet without blowing up household budgets. This isn't denial, it's discipline. The desalination era teaches a clear lesson. Fear is a terrible project manager. When we legislate against nightmares, we end up paying gold-plated premiums for problems that either don't arrive or arrive differently than predicted. Meanwhile, the bill never stops. Let's not make energy policy the next multi-billion-dollar cautionary tale. Australia needs sober, sovereignty-minded policy, not doomsday soundtracks. We can protect our environment, keep the grid reliable, preserve industry, and avoid writing blank cheques to overseas suppliers. But only if we refuse to be bullied by deadlines that outpace physics and economies. If this resonated with you, please share the episode and keep your heads while everyone else is losing theirs. Thank you for watching.